July 2013. My name is Betty Kyalo.
And I'm James Smart. First, the highlights. Free at last, abducted DO released by Al-Shabaab.
One down. How many to go? Wiper MP loses seat in petition.
I found out that by calling all the other deputy governors across and the country, that I was the only person whose security had been recalled.
Security of county officials withdrawn. Just who gave the order?
The president's case, Uhuru's secret battle with Safaricom. We begin tonight on a happy note. Tonight, and 2 Kenyans abducted by Al-Shabaab 2.5 years ago have been released.
Where the two, including a district officer, Edward Mulei, was set free by the abductors following what the government calls negotiations between neighboring communities.
KTN Sophia Wanuna begins our coverage tonight.
It has been 1.5 years of torment for the families of Edward Mulei and Frederick Wainaina following their abduction by Al-Shabaab militants.
My name is Mulei Ese, and I'm speaking on behalf of all Kenyan prisoners under the captivity of the Al-Shabaab, both civilian and combatants. And I'm sending an urgent plea and message to my government to work towards our release. Some of us have spent our entire lives as civil servants, serving not only the Kenyan government, but the Kenyan public at large. As you can see, we are here while serving the Kenyan public at Gerili. We have done what we could for our country, and now it is your turn to help us return us safely back to our homes and back to our families.
But now, 18 months later, amidst a dwindling hope, they have been reunited with their loved ones. Edward Mulei, who served as a district officer in Wajir, and Frederick Wainaina, who was a registrar of persons in the same region, was Sunday afternoon set free by their abductors. A statement from the Presidential Communications Unit says the release followed successful negotiations by neighboring communities. On January 12, 2011, more than 100 armed militants attacked a police station in Wajir County, abducting the duo. This came as the Kenya Defence Forces entered Somalia in pursuit of Al-Shabaab, who are threatening to cripple Kenya's tourism industry after several tourists were kidnapped by the group. Following the kidnapping of Mulei and Wainaina, the militant group demanded the release of all Muslim prisoners held on terrorism charges and that the government secure the release of all Muslim prisoners extradited to Uganda on the same charges. Releases they wanted made public. The Kenyan government said it would under no circumstances negotiate with the terrorist group. The government says talks are ongoing to secure the release of the other Kenyans still held captive in Somalia. Sophia Wanuna, KTN.
All right, and to give this story perspective, I'm joined via phone by the father of Edward Mulei, who was the district officer, and Mr. Yese. Good evening, and thank you very much for talking to KTN. How are you doing this evening?
We are very happy. We are excited.
All right. Your son has been away for 18 months, and
Yes.
he's just come back. Would you just describe to me how it feels, given that we didn't know anything, and for over 18 months, we've been trying to find out anything from him. How does it feel?
It is overwhelming. We have had a lot of support. Media has been trying to get information. We have received telephone calls, text messages from our friends. I think you can't describe it, but we are overwhelmed with joy.
All right, yes, I must ask you, how is your son, Edward Mulei, doing? How is he health-wise? Could you just describe to us I know he's happy to be home, but could you just explain to the nation just how he's doing?
He's fine. I've been talking to him. He has not yet come home, but I've been talking to him on a daily basis since yesterday, and he has assured me that they are okay. They are fine. They are doing well. They are just waiting for the time when they'll be reunited with the families.
Do you know when you will be able to reunite with your son? Have you been told?
No, we have not been told, but it might be soon. Very soon indeed.
All right, I can feel the excitement in your voice, but I must ask you this though. It's been over 18 months, slightly over 18 months. Would you say you've been in constant communication with government on these negotiations that we've been told that have been happening for the last 18 months?
Not quite, because that one was taken over by the government of Kenya. But we have been in constant touch with the government on that issue, and they have really given us the necessary support throughout this period. And I must thank the government for taking the steps that they did so that to have the release of my son.
All right. Do you know how exactly were they released? Was ransom paid?
No, there was no ransom that was paid. What happened was that we did explain to our neighbors that even if there was any demand for ransom, it was not possible for us as families to raise any kind of ransom. I come from Tana River, where there were clashes the other day, and you are aware that the homes were burnt down. You are aware that the businesses are stopped because of the clashes. So no ransom was paid whatsoever.
Yes, I know you haven't had enough time to think about many things, but do you, and talk to your son, do you think he's going back to his job?
Oh, well, that is a decision which finally he has to make himself, but I don't see any reason why he should not continue with his job as a district officer.
All right, we've been talking to Yese, who's the father of Edward Mule, was a district officer, have just been released for about 18 months. We do thank you very much for talking to KTN, and indeed this is a story that we will be following for you tomorrow and finding out just how Edward Mule is doing and his 18 months in captivity. Betty.
A sweet reunion that is. Now to a security story of a different kind, and it is emerging that the government has now withdrawn the security detail of top court figures, including ex-Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Raila's 14-year-old driver and bodyguards to 3 court senators have been recalled. And as KTN Sam Ogena reports, the withdrawal has been described as an executive order from the office of the president.
The government has locked horns with the opposition in an ending tough wars revolving around ex-Prime Minister Raila Odinga. The latest flashpoint involving security detail to the former premier and a few CORD senators. The government has effectively withdrawn Raila's long-serving driver of 14 years and bodyguards attached to Senators Johnston Muthama, Otieno Kajwang and Janet Ongera. Raila's sister, the Deputy Kisumu Governor Ruth Odinga's security detail, was equally not spared. And the move has swiftly sparked a sharp protest from the CORD coalition.
Called the AP commandant, who is in charge of the AP's the security we have. He came to my office and told me that he had a circular that had stated that the governor only who's supposed to get security.
The security officers withdrawn are among tens others belonging to the prisons department that were recalled for redeployment. Commissioner General of Prisons, Isaiah Osugo, confirming the redeployment, said all its officers attached to politicians have been withdrawn following an executive decision from the office of the president and will be reassigned to provide security to prisoners and correctional facilities. But in a rebuttal, the ex-premier spokesperson Dennis Onyango in a statement stated, quote, "We see this as a follow-up to the irresponsible talk by the government spokesman last week. He was relaying a message from an officer too scared to face Raila," end of quote, claiming the others affected were decoys used as collateral damage to sanitize the exercise. Just last week,
he is forever mourning that the government is not giving him recognition, yet he has refused to return 6 government vehicles.
The ex-PM returns to the country Tuesday evening in the company of CORD governors from a United States tour to the reality of not having a driver attached to him late in the former President Daniel Moi's era.
Sikubaliani na hiyo maneno kabisa. Kama ya securities ya code ndio wanatolewa. Sikubaliana hiyo maneno.
Kama serikali lazima kujibu kwa nini ananyang'anywa hizo maofisa. Hiyo labda ni kama siasa, kwa maana kama wengine iko naye na yeye ana. Hiyo ni siasa tu.
The former premier has been in the crosshairs of the Jubilee government. The ex-PM already has been denied access to the VIP lounges at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Samogina, KTN, Nairobi.
The Big Q in association with Nguvu Cement.
Raila Odinga's driver has worked for him for 14 years.
Indeed, and that story brings us to the big question tonight, and we ask you, do you support the government's move to withdraw VIP security to Ruth Odinga and some selected code leaders? Do you support the government move to withdraw VIP security for Ruth Odinga and selected code leaders? Send us your yes or no answers to the number 8040, and we'll sample your views during this live newscast.
Choose Nguvu for undoubted strength.
Continuing with our coverage, voters in Matungulu constituency could be headed to the polls just over 4 months after they elected their member of parliament.
Matungulu MP Stephen Mulei of the Wiper Democratic Party has lost his parliamentary seat following an election petition.
Justice Lilian Mutende ordered a fresh election for Matungulu. As KTN's Rita Tinina reports, the new law on election petitions has seen the judiciary work to the bone, without about of the country's 188 petitions dispersed, even as the deadline for conclusions of the petitions nears.
At the Machakos law courts, petitioners and their supporters celebrate the outcome of the Matungulu petition after High Court Judge Justice Lilian Mutende nullified the election of Stephen Mutinda Mule as the area member of parliament and ordered a fresh election. The petition, which was filed by Thomas Musao Malinda of New Democrat Party, Stephen Dambuki Muli, Moffat Maitha of NAC and John Mackenzie of Mwaito Party, is the latest election petition to be determined and the first in which an MP has lost a seat. But Mule is not giving up just yet.
Tutaenda kukata rufaa kwa sababu ile uamuzi hatukubaliani nalo.
Following the March 4th general election, 188 petitions were filed. Less than half have been dispensed with. Of the 188 petitions, 24 are challenging the election of governors, 13 the election of senators, 70 are against the election of members of the National Assembly, 9 against county women representatives, 67 against county assembly representatives, and 5 against county assembly speakers. 12 petitions have been withdrawn, including 5 against members of the National Assembly. No petitions against governors have been withdrawn. 30 petitions have been struck out on technical grounds. 12 of them were against the election of members of the National Assembly. 39 petitions are awaiting judgment and formal withdrawal, including 22 against county assembly representatives. 101 petitions, among them 16 against governors, 41 against members of the National Assembly, and 30 against county assembly representatives, are yet to be heard. Judgment has been delivered in 9 cases. Following the petitions, 16 appeals have been filed at the High Court and Court of Appeal. With the Elections Act setting a 6-month deadline for parliamentary and county electoral disputes to be concluded, the judiciary is optimistic that all cases will have been dealt with by the end of August. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Here in Nairobi, the courts played host to a high-profile yet secret case filed by President Uhuru Kenyatta's ICC lawyer Stephen K. The case against mobile phone companies Safaricom and Airtel have sparked off a heated debate after the media was kicked out of the proceedings. But as KTN's Asha Mwelu reports, the lawyer insists the confidentiality is meant to protect the identity of witnesses in the ICC cases.
It began like any ordinary case. President Uhuru Kenyatta's lawyer Stephen K against service providers Safaricom and Airtel. Before the case could commence, however, High Court Judge Isaac Linaola ordered the media and the public to leave the court proceedings for the case to be held in camera. This case, said to touch on the ongoing criminal proceedings against President Kenyatta at the International Criminal Court, sparked uproar over the confidentiality of the proceedings. The International Center for Policy and Conflict said in a statement that the secret petition was unacceptable. ICPC further cited that the preliminary proceedings ought to have been conducted in public before the judge decided to bar the media and the public. The judiciary, however, issued a clarification stating that details of the case will be made public only if it does not affect the ICC trials. Nairobi-based advocate Kennedy Ogeto also issued a statement on behalf of Stephen K, explaining why the proceedings had to be held in camera. In the statement, Ogeto clarified that the proceedings were permitted to be filed in confidentiality in order to protect the identity of witnesses and victims in the case against President Kenyatta at the ICC. President Kenyatta's defense team is seeking unspecified information from Safaricom and Airtel. As these proceedings against the two service providers continue here in Kenya, at The Hague, Trial Chamber 5 has instructed Uhuru's defense team to make a submission before end of August on their preferred venue for his trial, set to commence in November. Uhuru's legal team will therefore have to decide if they wish to have the opening of his trial held either in Kenya or the neighboring Tanzania. Asha Mwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
And following the sharp reaction by the International Center for Policy and Conflict, State House has sent a statement to newsrooms in which President Uhuru Kenyatta says, contrary to the International Center for Policy and Conflict's claims that the secret petition is unacceptable, the President and Deputy President have a right to use all available legal avenues to prepare their defense adequately before commencement of the ICC hearings. They also stated that the petition filed at the High Court by the President's lawyers was in preparation for the trials, and the judge who had the proceedings was within the law. Smart, over to you. Smart will be coming in just a few minutes. Smart.
All right, thank you very much, Betty. And tonight we need to talk about matters devolution and indeed the developments. And in studio with me, I'm joined by the man of the moment, that is CIC Chair Charles Natai. Thank you very much for making time to talk to us.
Thank you.
Now, just a day after Jubilee governors met Deputy President William Ruto, strike a deal on how devolution, how they're going to agree on matters devolution. You're a man on the spot, because now we do need to understand just exactly what are we talking about when it's in terms of devolution. What is the problem with devolution? Who's withholding functions and funds meant for the counties?
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that there's a problem with devolution as such. I mean, there is a process which is provided for in the Constitution, in the 6th schedule to the Constitution, Section 15, which requires Parliament to establish by legislation mechanisms on how those functions will be transferred from the national government to the county government.
That's why we have a problem.
No, there's no problem with the law. The problem is with following the law.
So who's not following the law from where you sit today?
From where I sit, it is not clear to me, because the Transition to Devolved Government Act established the Transition Authority, which has the responsibility to ensure that those functions are transferred in accordance with the law. And the law is very specific in terms of what is supposed to happen for the counties that are ready for those functions to specifically apply for those functions, and Transitional Authority to evaluate that, and then the Transition Authority to transfer those functions. And if there's a dispute about that, then the Senate will resolve that dispute.
All right, so right now there's a move between governors and senators to get 1 million signatures or thereabouts, so that we can have enough threshold to push the country to a referendum, so that some issues, as they say, should not be given through free will, if you like, that they should be embedded in the law. Should we go to a referendum?
Well, I can't say right now what the governors want to amend in the constitution because I haven't seen it. But from where I sit, from where CIC is concerned, insofar as devolution is concerned, we see nothing wrong with the Constitution. The Constitution is clear in terms of the role of the Senate. The Constitution is clear in terms of the powers that are given to the counties. So I'm not sure.
So is it a matter of semantics when someone says that the Constitution talks about 48 governments which are all respect to each other and they should deal with each other in terms of with mutual respect? Do you have 48 governments? Do you have one government and 47 little governments? What exactly do we have? No,
Article 6 of the Constitution is clear. We have 48 governments. We have a national government and 47 governments. And the Constitution is clear that these are distinct and interdependent governments and that they should work on the basis of consultation and cooperation. So there is no doubt. The Constitution is very clear.
All right, just hang on with me. Yeah. And a day after Jubilee governors apparently struck a deal with the national government over their quest for a referendum, confusion still reigns about their next move. It is not clear whether the court governors will go along with the deal, but questions still linger over just how much the counties actually get. KTN's political editor Ben Kitili now takes a look at the figures behind the controversy and facts that hardly come out. Take a look at this.
They have been termed the small presidents around the counties. And for the last few days, they have been a major headache to the national president and his government. The governors have been pushing for more money from the national budget. They want Kenyans to go for a referendum to enable the devolved government to access at least 40% from the national coffers. The Jubilee administration has allocated 34% of the national budget to the counties. This is more than double the 15% required by the law, translating to 210 billion shillings. But the confusion seems to be about what figure to use to work out the percentage. Talking to KTN Prime, the controller of budget, Agnes Odhiambo, said the 34% was based on the 2011-2012 budget, which were the latest audited accounts. And this is where the bone of contention lies. The county governors want the law changed to allow them to get a bigger chunk of the national cake, and the Commission on Revenue Allocation agrees.
210 billion shillings is meant for county government, which is already too little, because the Commission of Revenue Allocation recommended 231 billion.
Using the last audited figures, the counties get 210 billion of the total 610 billion shilling budget. Using the formula highlighted in the Division of Revenue Bill, the 47 counties will share 190 billion shillings equitably in unconditional transfers and the remaining 20 billion for ongoing projects. Only 14 of the 47 counties will benefit from the 3 billion shillings equalization fund meant to boost marginalized areas.
33 counties are left out, only 14. So, and I've explained to them that the criteria is very little money, but I've told them, if you use the 2.5 billion shillings well, life will not be the same again in Keyo Marakwet.
For now, though, the governors will enjoy the CRA's support in their pursuit for more funds.
It is difficult to tell whether or not 34% of the latest audited accounts is enough to fund the county governments. However, the question is, why can't the increase be effected in the same way that the current funds are being prompted? That is without amending the law, as the referendum would obviously make the process even more costly. Ben Kitili, KTN.
All right, and still in studio with me is the chairman of CIC, Charles Nyachae, who we've been talking to on matters devolution. And just my last question on devolution before we go to other urgent matters tonight. Finally, you agree or don't agree that we must go to a referendum to put these matters clear, because either someone is trying to give us a different law that you don't have. Should you or should you not, just to put it on record or on paper?
Oh, let me just say this. As far as my understanding is concerned, the Constitution is very clear on all these issues.
We don't need a referendum.
Not that I know. I mean, you see, a referendum or to initiate a constitution amendment, anybody can do that as long as they use the right process. If they have a basis for it. From where I sit, the Constitution can be implemented as is, And that's really what we're focusing on.
All right. MPs today have faulted your commission and yourself from delaying bills that come to Parliament, talking about the media bill and the Freedom of Information bill. Why is it late? We needed to have this by August.
Well, one, I'm not sure that it's late because before now, MPs have been able to debate and enact bills in a period lesser than what they have right now. But here are the facts. And let me say that I think it's very unfortunate that certain members of Parliament choose to lie to the nation from the floor of Parliament, because A, there was absolutely no delay by CIC on either of the two bills. The Media Council bill, which is the first one, was with CIC for a period of 3 weeks. Now, you're talking about a bill which could have been developed by the executive from 2010. And CIC has it for 3 weeks. Then you say that CIC has delayed it. I think that is without basis. The Information and Technology bill, which is the second bill, was processed by CIC in less than a week. We had to work day and night, and this can be confirmed by the relevant ministry. So this whole idea that CIC has delayed bills is either those members of Parliament who are saying that are either speaking out of ignorance, or they just want to be mischievous. And if members of Parliament, and it's their constitutional right to under Article 261 to extend the period for them to debate and enact the bills. Now, if they want to do that, and as I say, it's absolutely their constitutional right.
Yes.
And if they choose to go on recess rather than pass the bills,
that's okay with you.
That's okay. But let them not lie to the nation.
30 seconds for me. 30 seconds for me. Speaking about mischievous and mischief, it is all. They claim that you're delaying bills so that you can renegotiate your contract, which is coming to an end.
Look,
any truth in that?
Look, the Constitution is very clear about the term of CIC. There is absolutely no truth in that, and the work of CIC goes a lot beyond the bills that they're talking about. There's a period which the Constitution has provided for, and Parliament, the Constitution in the 6th schedule says Parliament can bring the life of CIC to an end when the Constitution is fully implemented. And as far as we are concerned, the Constitution is a long way from being fully implemented.
So you still have your contract? Thank you very much for talking to us, talking to the chair of the CIC, talking about bills that are apparently late and also matters devolution. You're watching KTN Prime, and we've been talking about matters to do with security, and that is the basis of our big question. And so on Big Question tonight, we ask you, do you support the government's move to withdraw VIP security for Ruth Odinga and selected code leaders? We ask you if you support the government's move to withdraw VIP security for Ruth Odinga and selected code leaders. We're asking you to send us your yes or no answer to the number 8040, and we'll sample your comments during this live newscast.
Choose Nguvu for undoubted strength.
Oh well, this is KTN Prime. Do stay with us. We have plenty more just ahead on KTN Prime.
The 8.5% benchmark rate.
The financial services sector is heating up as SACCOs go after bank customers in a bid to grow their lending base and increase deposits. SACCOs have been advertising their products, with their key selling point being the low and fixed interest rates available only at SACCOs as opposed to the high interest rates offered at banks.
When you compare the prices of loans and advances offered by SACCOs compared to the alternative market, SACCOs are the best in terms of interest pricing.
The recent show of bravado is due to a raft of reforms carried out 4 years ago, which led to the establishment of a SACCO regulator whose purpose is to supervise SACCOs and to license deposit-taking SACCOs.
SACCOs have invested a lot in education. The government has been very, very proactive also in terms of policy, regulation and support in terms of cooperative legislation and development programs.
All these reforms have ramped up the attractiveness and reliability of SACCOs, and now more and more Kenyans are choosing to borrow from them as opposed to banks.
You don't have to have a lot of savings, a big figure in the bank for you to have to take a loan with them. So, in my opinion, I will go for a SACCO rather than the big banks.
The rates are cheaper than the bank. The percentage, rather. Yeah.
And given that deposit-taking SACCOs hold more than 293 billion shillings, the plan to scale up the competition even further should be worrisome for banks.
I don't think that the SACCO business can outrun the existing banking business, because one is it's a very small business. It's slightly above, in excess of $2 billion. The banking sector is what, $27 billion.
Moreover, banks need SACCOs to thrive since they provide liquidity, while SACCOs have to rely on banks to provide services to its members since the Banking Act blocks them from the national payment system.
They should actually work side by side with the banks in terms of increasing financial inclusion.
Regardless of how the battle turns out, the eventual winners will be the Kenyans who will get to benefit from lower lending rates going forward. Adelaide Changole, KTN Business Today.
Thanks, Adelaide. Now, mango farmers in the Tana Delta are set for a major boon in that particular market with the official opening of a fruit processing plant. The plant, which is already complete, is expected to significantly reduce the losses farmers have been incurring through either wastage or exploitation. Our senior coast reporter Ferdinand Omondi gained access to the factory ahead of its opening and filed this report.
It is an imposing building along the dusty road between Garsen and Hola, and perhaps what the doctor ordered for the people of Tana River. It's an area teeming with huge amounts of mangoes, a popular fruit, but most of which goes to waste for lack of a wide enough market. Whatever remains is exploited by middlemen who give insulting prices due to a low demand, since there have been hitherto only 4 processing plants in the entire coast region, none of which is in the vast Tana River zone.
Coast province itself produces 363,000 metric tons of mangoes annually. And with these 363,000 metric tons that are produced annually, Tana River County produces over 45,000 metric tons.
As a result, the project in Hola was started 3 years ago after locals and CDA saw the need for intervention amid rising poverty levels. The Coast Region Poverty Index stays high at 62% in spite of abundant resources like tree crops, including coconut, citrus and mangoes.
CDA decided to come up with that intervention, and instead of putting up that plant in Mombasa or Malindi, we decided to bring it closer to the people.
The integrated food processing plant is expected to do much more than reduce wastage and raise profits.
Any community or any area that exports raw materials, in a sense, they are exporting jobs.
The plant, which was acquired from India, has the capacity to produce 30 tons of pulp and ready-to-drink juice per day. 40 jobs will be created directly, while indirect beneficiaries are estimated to number over 20,000. Water, which it will need in thousands of liters, is the biggest obstacle.
We are going to sink borehole, okay? So that is a permanent solution to the water problem.
Operations will be underway as soon as the technical staff are in place. The Tana River Delta is believed to be one of the highest in terms of potential for growth, yet it remains among the poorest in the country. In fact, when complete, this factory will be the first in the entire county, and no doubt a huge step forward towards the empowerment of the people. Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, Hola.
Well, it is on that fruity note that we close business, but not before we give you the market numbers on Financial Markets Review. My name is Bonitunya. Good night.
The Financial Report in association with Visa. Visa Debit Card. It's fast, convenient, and safer than carrying cash. More people around the world go with Visa.